So, first of all, I think that our challenges as humanity will come way before we get to general intelligence. Think about something like unemployment. At what level is unemployment in society becomes so negative that it destroys society?
We stand at a crossroads, dreaming of a future powered by AI. But what if the path to utopia leads directly to a dystopia we never saw coming? Today, we're joined by Professor Dan Ariely, a world-renowned expert who studies the hidden flaws in human decision-making. He suggests the greatest threat we face isn't technology itself, but our own psychology. Are we programmed to ignore the very warnings that could save us? This is a conversation about the invisible social contracts we rely on every day and what happens when they begin to break.
If the unemployment was equally distributed, then I wouldn't have worried as much. But the combination of unemployment, disinformation, increasing concentration of wealth are going to together to create an unpleasant period.
Yeah.
And we need to prepare for it. I think you asked me, what's the probability this will happen? I think it's very high.
If you imagine utopia in that sense, like let's say that we solved all these problems, how would the end state would look like? If we sit here 10 years from now and humanity did everything right, how would it look like? Okay. Hello, Dan. Thank you for coming today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Welcome to the Readiness Protocol, where we are trying to figure out what humanity need to do fast in order to be ready for artificial general intelligence.
I'm not sure I have a lot to contribute, but looking forward to the discussion.
I'm sure you are, but before we start, we have here our podcast assistant, and we'll ask R to start the conversation for us.
I'll be listening carefully to everything discussed, and I'm here to provide summaries, make announcements, or answer questions whenever you need. Just address me by name when you'd like my input.
Hi, R. Can you introduce our guest for today's show, Dan Ariely?
Professional. Absolutely. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Dan Ariely to the show. Dan is a renowned behavioral economist, best-selling author, and professor at Duke University. He's the brilliant mind behind books like Predictably Irrational and The Upside of Irrationality, which have transformed how we understand human decision-making. Dan's research focuses on the fascinating ways we make choices, often in ways that surprise even ourselves. His work combines rigorous scientific research with real-world applications, making complex behavioral insights accessible and actionable for all of us. Warm. Dan, welcome to the show. We're excited to dive into your insights on human behavior and decision-making.
That's very, very lovely. Very nice. Thank you so much.
So, Dan, I'm very excited to have you here on the show. And we know each other for a few years. We had some sessions and discussions about the world, the future. And the reason why I started doing this readiness protocol is because I realized that as we are approaching to, artificial general intelligence, super intelligence, basically having AI be able to do things better than humans in most categories, we are approaching a very interesting optionality for humanity. Either we are going into a utopian future where every person can fulfill his full potential, will live in abundance, and everybody is super happy, or we are in a dystopian situation where people are basically controlled by a small group of people that have access to this amazing technology that are basically having everybody like slave matrix style and whatever. What do you think about is most probable to happen?
So first of all, I think that our challenges as humanity will come way before we get to general intelligence. Think about something like unemployment. At what level is unemployment in society becomes so negative that it destroys society? So as long as society has unemployment and we can cover it with social benefits, people at least don't go hungry. Imagine a country where the unemployment goes above that level. It is just not enough money to get people to not be able to cover some very, very basic needs. Maybe people can't pay for healthcare. Maybe people can't get food. Maybe they can't get their kids to get education. What would happen in that society? And if you think about unease in a society as a function of those things, very quickly it could become petty crime, uh, violence, and then mob behavior. So I'm actually very curious. You're such a master with all of these things. I'm very curious about what would be good tools to kind of simulate how society is dealing with that. Now, if we prepared for it, we might be able to absorb that shock. But if we're unprepared, and let's say every company tomorrow fires 30%, 30% could be reasonable. It's not, but 10%, 20%, what is the outcome? What is the outcome of that? And I think there's like 100 years from now, I think we could be ready with a different social structure. But right now, the speed of change of the social structure is very out of pace with the speed of changing in technology and employment and so on. So I'm very worried. I think, and you don't need dramatic improvements from what we have today. Imagine technology stopped. That's it. With the current technology, by the time businesses figure out what it can do for them and what percentage of people could be fired and would be fired, right? So I think we're kind of at an important time when we need to redesign our environment. Now, are we going to be able to do it? I think the answer right now is no. And the reason is that when we think about people in general, one of the real challenges for us is thinking long-term versus short-term. We're not good at this. We're not good in sleeping, taking care of our health, saving for retirement, taking care of the environment, you name it. Every problem in humanity that has short-term thinking versus long-term thinking, short-term thinking wins and long-term thinking gets not the importance it needs to. Basically, we eat more cookies than salads, if you think about this. We procrastinate and so on. Now, you could say that maybe what we've created as a society is that we've created politicians, and the politicians are elected by us to think long-term rather than short-term. And I think there was a period in history when that was the case, when politicians said, we'll go to the moon, or we'll create infrastructure, we'll spend a lot of money on infrastructure, or we'll rebuild the economy and so on. I think the nature of social media and the news cycle connected to this has gotten politicians to be much less long-term thinking than short-term thinking. So if you say, can people go on a diet? Difficult, but yes. Can people stop smoking? Difficult, but yes. Are there cases and mechanisms that can help us think long-term rather than short-term? The answer is yes. We're not great at it, but we can get better. Are politicians in the current state of the world able to do it? I think it's much tougher. It's even tougher for them than for us. I think they used to be better at this than us. I think they're worse than this than us. So which politician would want to get right now and get us to start paying tremendous cost for something that could happen in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? The answer is nobody. So I worry that we're not going to be prepared. I worry that the damage will be created, and only then will a politician be able to get the power to start working on this. So that's one one big challenge. How do we get our political system to have enough willpower to move forward? A second topic I'll just mention quickly is disinformation. My last book was called Misbelief, and it was about how people start believing in things that ain't so, and how not only do they believe that, but it's become a lens from which they view everything else. And now we have a situation in which the political discourse can save itself effort by just getting people to believe something that ain't so. So, what would you like to do? To fix something or to just get people to believe that it's not really a problem? Right? Which one is easier?
Yeah.
The belief one. So we've created a method in which, and it's really a complex system. In Misbelief, I describe kind of how the system of information is really attacking our emotional system and our social system and our cognitive system. And we are, you and I can say, oh, we know the truth. But the reality is that, we're so, there's so much that is making it really hard for us to understand what is really going on. So that's the second part, is that we live in a world in which the way we consume information and knowledge and the way we form our beliefs is very susceptible to influences, including our own influences. I just want to view whatever I'm comfortable with. And that's going to make seeing the hard problems out there less likely.
Yeah.
And then the third topic, so we say, okay, short-term versus long-term is one pillar of challenges. Disinformation, misinformation, corrosive information is a second one. And then the third difficult pillar is the question of good versus bad, good versus evil. And, historically, when new technology came out, it's almost always the case that it was abused in its early days. Right? One of the examples is the United States Postal Service. What a lovely service. You can send letters across the US,
Yeah.
different states. One of the first ways it was being used was to defraud people from other states. If I live in state one and you live in state two, and I send you some catalog and you send me a check, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm never going to give you this. And the way that the US was structured, there was nothing you could do because we live in a different state. Okay, so they revised the wire fraud, and now you can't do that anymore. And it's the postal service story is not unique. The thing about good versus bad is that the bad is more powerful than the good. Kind of my metaphor is that if you have a pool of water and one person poops into it, you can say, I have thousands of gallons and only a little piece of poop. There's something that pollutes everything. And it's and what I mean by that is in the notion of the world of information is that the moment trust is gone, it's very tough, right? What are we going to do? So, what will happen to misuse of the technology? What will happen to trust? What will happen to anger? That my mother passed away about 6 weeks ago, and I'm dealing with outside of the grief. I'm also dealing with bills, and she was a very lovely, very trusting woman, and she has been paying for all kinds of things that were scams. And
Crazy, huh?
and actually, there's an interesting finding when you take pictures, MRIs, fMRIs mostly, of people's brains, and you expose them to positive images and negative images. Positive images cookies, kids running, flowers, negative images, amputations, diseases, so on. And then you look at brains of people who are younger and people who are older. The younger brains and the older brains react the same way to the positive images, but the older brains react less to the negative information.
Really?
Yeah. And the evolutionary story of this is that when you're young, you want to look at good versus bad. And there's a lot to learn from bad. You have a long life ahead of you. Learn what's bad and avoid it. When you're old, you say, I don't have that long to live. The value of learning is lower because I have a less expected life. Let me focus on the positive. Lots of time young people say, "Oh, when I'll be 50, I don't think there'll be a reason to live anymore." When you're my age, I'm 58. You say, "Oh, when I'll reach 80, I'm not sure there's a reason to." When you get to be older, you say, it's quite good.
Yeah.
One of the things that happen is that our brains change, right? When in fact, kind of when I was younger, I was more consumed with negative things compared to now. I think subjectively, I'm happier now, but because it's the way I process information is in a different way. So thankfully, right, human evolution have helped us with that element. I think that if you were 60 with the brain functioning of a 17-year-old with tremendous angst, it would be so good. So, but anyway, going back to the scams, I think as people get older and they think less on the negative sides, they're more susceptible to scams.
Yes.
But this was just one part of it. I think that there's a real question of how the technology will be used. So, imagine, let's go back to our story where 20% of the people are unemployed and financial challenges are really tough for some and other people are doing incredibly well, right? Because maybe let's say one more word about this. Technology in general has tended to focus wealth on few.
Yes.
And let's kind of give an example for that. So imagine the world of music. We're sitting, there's an old radio here.
Yeah.
The world of music. It used to be that there was, in every coffee shop, there was a band with 3 people and they got paid a little bit and
Yep.
that was fine. And then technology came and the radio came. And all of a sudden you say, I don't have to pay these 3 people. Let me put this radio. And the way we'll pay for it is we'll pay some for the technology, but we'll pay for some singers who will produce their way. And then we have the internet and so on. And if you look at the distribution of payment now, there's few artists who basically serve the whole world.
Yes.
So if you look at the distribution, imagine a function where you say getting paid very little, getting paid a lot. Maybe it was a normal distribution before.
Now very
but
skewed.
now it's a very, very skewed distribution. There's Taylor Swift is making unprecedented amount in the world of music. Now, is she objectively the best musician that ever was on the face of the earth? I don't want to argue about that. I don't know much about music, but I think she's benefited a lot from the fact that technology is squishing. There's lots of unemployed musicians now, and there are very, very few who make a lot.
Right.
Now, in economics, a lot of people don't understand the role of taxes. But the world should have been designed so that Taylor Swift pays more taxes and it goes to fund the rest of the musicians.
Exactly.
Because we as a society benefit a lot from musicians working. We don't know who then. Taylor Swift creates lots of value for the world. She gets paid a lot, but who will add to her and who would replace her? And if we create a market of what's called the winner takes all, imagine an extreme case. Taylor Swift makes all the money, no, every other musician is unemployed. Is this a good world for us? Is this a good world for music? The answer is no.
No.
So what we want is we want her amazing success to spread a little bit to the field so that the world of music has a future, has more people can try different things, right? Without, by the way, the same thing is true for startups. You want a big distribution of effort. You want lots of restaurants. I mean, it's not just about music. So there are 2 points here. One is that technology tends to focus on a mechanism of winner,
To narrow.
the distribution of income and wealth, and it's not necessarily good for us as a world. So now we go into the world in which this technology is going to shrink the gap in an unprecedented way. Think about, let's take technology companies because that's the most extreme. Take a company like Microsoft. I'm not from that world. You are. How many people do you think work right now at Microsoft?
I would guess around a few hundred thousands.
Okay. And there's going to be delays and so on, but assume that Microsoft would do the following thing. Assume that somehow by magic tomorrow everybody who works there would quit, and then Microsoft would have to invite the people they want to join back. How many people would they invite back? What percentage?
My guess is 10% or less.
Okay. Now there will be some jobs that will stay longer, and some will stay longer, but it will certainly be a big difference, right? Now it will take them a long time to restructure, but the reason I gave this example, imagine that everybody left today, is because you're not firing anybody. It's not morally a question, and then you get to think to yourself about what will happen if there was a new page, right? Or what would happen if Microsoft closed today and another company bought their assets and had to start from the beginning, right? This, by the way, this way of thinking, of saying what would happen if we started again, helps us clarify our thoughts without what is called sunk cost.
Yes.
Right? Without the way that we got here. So if we're going into this world of very high unemployment, unprepared, and we have misinformation, and we have ways of using it for bad, COVID had an unprecedented amount of misinformation because everybody was home, everybody was watching all kinds of things, and the world was very strange.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found in misbelief is that one of the drivers to start believing in things that ain't so is stress. And I'll tell you 2 stories about that. Imagine 2 tribes of fishermen. One tribe of fishermen fishes in the lake. One fishes in the deep ocean. Which one of them has a more predictable life? The lake.
The lake, of course.
Whatever we fished yesterday is likely to be what we fish today and tomorrow. The ocean, huge variation. In which environment do people create more rituals and all kinds of beliefs that they can influence the gods?
In the ocean
In the ocean, of
environment.
course, right?
Yes.
In the oceans, people create all kinds of, let's clap twice and bow to the god and make this dance and so on. We're not good when we have uncertainty. We're not good when we don't understand the world. I'll give you another example. Imagine I show you a picture with random black and white dots. We call it white noise. White noise is usually hearing when you hear a wide spectrum, but you can also think about the picture, which is random black and white dots. And I give you one of those things. I say, hey, do you see an image here? And you say yes or no, and I give you another one, and I do it 50 times. But I do it on a day that you're going to do something frightening. like jumping from a plane with a parachute.
Yeah.
And I do it when we're on the ground, and I do it when we're getting into the plane, and I do it when we're already at 10,000 feet, and I do it 2 minutes before you jump. What happens to your ability to say, I see an image here? It goes up with stress.
Yes.
Why does it go up with stress? Imagine you're an animal in the jungle, and you think that there might be a tiger somewhere. What does your system does? It goes into hyperdrive, saying, I think there's a tiger.
Yeah.
Find it. I'm not willing to take the risk. It's not like
The
normal
risk
day.
reward
I'm
function is
stressed. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's right. And I see these two leaves moving. There might be a tiger there, right? So when we are stressed in a way that says, I don't understand the world, I don't understand what to do, our system gets into a hyperdrive of trying to understand what's going on, and that's what got people to start having misbelief during COVID. Very stressed, not sure what to happen. Do I have my job? Don't I have my job? Will I be able to pay my bill? Not. Where is the world going? I'm stressed. Give me a story.
Yeah.
There's a tiger there. And of course, the internet provided lots of these
Mhm.
stories. Now, we said unemployment, misinformation, and then on the misinformation side, you say, so what will happen when 20% of the people are home, stressed out, and there's a world out there that can give them a victim. They feel them like a victim of somebody else. So now we're going into the third part, which is that the economic disparity will go up
Mhm.
and wealth will be concentrated. What do you think would happen to anger?
Rise dramatically.
Against?
The wealthy.
Yeah. So we live in a society, and there's lots of things that we fail to understand how wonderful they are. Remember, I've been working for a long time in Africa, in all kinds of places. There are countries in Africa that the police doesn't function. And if you're a person with even some means, you hire personal guards to guard your home. But it doesn't work that well, because if you really have some means and somebody else comes and bribe the guards, they go home
Yeah.
and bad things happen. I think we don't sufficiently understand the safety we have. I don't think we understand the social contract that we have, that we're all in this together. And I think that there's a chance that this social contract will be broken, and there's a chance that safety will be broken. And I think that this pillar of misinformation, disinformation, and so on will facilitate that. Anyway, so
Wow.
I'm worried. I'm worried about unemployment. I think that the combination of unemployment, disinformation, and shrinking, like if the unemployment was equally distributed, then I wouldn't have worried as much. But the combination of unemployment,
Misinformation,
disinformation, and the
concentration of wealth.
increasing concentration of wealth are going to together to create an unpleasant period.
Yeah.
And we need to prepare for it. I think you asked me, what's the probability this will happen? I think it's very high. Should we wait until it happens? No. But this goes back to the first question. We're not that good in thinking long term.
Amazing. So basically, what you're saying is that as our current trajectory doesn't do good, this combination of short-term thinking, misinformation, and concentration of wealth
And unemployment,
and unemployment is very, very dangerous. And I totally agree with you. And you also mentioned like how every technology is first used by fraudsters, right? You gave the post example, and you gave like this example. And we're seeing this a lot now in Glide Identity, my company. We work with banks, and we see how Fraud is rising dramatically now with AI, especially with the elder people. Anywhere between romance scams and just convincing people to wire tremendous amount of money, and this is just growing as fraudsters are very fast to adopt this technology.
Very fast, and we don't know how to defend against them yet. So, we're all getting a lot of those things. But I was involved in a few attacks on me that were really people were spending a lot of time and effort on trying to target me. I mean, there's these attacks that are very broad. Say, oh, we'll just try.
Yeah.
But there are ones that are against individuals. It's tough. It's tough. And what is the effect on those things on trust?
Yeah.
And our willingness to feel that the world is a positive way and willing to contribute and help each other and so on.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like trust is such a delicate thing. Like trust is the clean water, where if you get something dirty into that, everything becomes dirty. I've been visiting the Visa headquarters in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and one of the guys there, they said that they say that payment is moving in the speed of trust.
Yeah.
Right? And basically creating this trust is very hard. Ruining it is very easy.
Yeah.
And then if we go back to the framework of the readiness protocol, so we started now with the challenges that we have and the risks that we have, right? So
can I add one more challenge?
Please.
And it's not so much a challenge for physical safety or for employment. It's the challenge of what does it mean to be a productive human being? So, I write. I started writing books a long time ago. Over time, I write slower and I enjoy it more. For me, writing is kind of like drinking wine. I think about each sentence and do I like it or not.
Beautiful.
And now I have this approach of being able to using a tool to make it more efficient. Is this better for me? Like, so let's say I wrote 10 books so far. Would I be better off writing? And I have 3 books I'm kind of playing with right now. One is about trying to get people to take more risks, worry less about failing. One is about end of life. I'm doing lots of research about the last chapter of life and how to think about it. And
super interesting.
And one is about bureaucracy, which I hate. I mean, not the book I hate, the bureaucracy I hate. But let's say I wrote these 3 books in the next 10 years. Or let's say I wrote 30 books with the help of AI. Which world is better for me? And I don't mean financially, because I don't know what the monetization will happen with those things, but in which world I'm better off. And the reality is that I try to play with some of those AI agents, but for me, I get to my desk and I have my espresso and I spend time thinking, and I'm fully engaged with the idea that I'm trying to, and I get stuck, right? It's like, oh, this is not the right sentence, and this is this, but eventually it's a wonderful way to spend the day. If you ask me what's a good day, for me, a day of sitting and writing, and at the end of the day, writing 700 or 1,000 words. Sometimes I get more, but it's not a bad day. But with AI, you would say, that's all you produced? You could produce so much.
Exactly.
But you know what? This is another question. Like, what is a good life? Like, is it about producing 30 more books that I haven't thought about as much and enjoyed them? The ancient cavemen did tools that were beautiful. They were not just functional.
Yeah.
Where's the aesthetic? So I don't know what to do with that, because there's certainly a way to say, oh, here's just the general structure of this chapter. Please, I'm guessing this will happen, right?
Yeah.
You can say, this is a chapter, write it for me. And here's my voice and things I've done before. Is this really what we want to do? I think it will be very hard. Imagine I wake up in the morning and I have two laptops. And one is laptop with no AI, just do the work. Another one is full of AI models trained on my writing style and voice and so on. And you could say, which one is better for you short term and which one is better for you long term?
Yeah, very.
And can we do that one? So I'm concerned with that. So to the extent that AI can take away from us things we don't like, great.
Mhm.
To the extent it can get more people to do things we love, that's great. But I am worried.
I think that for sure, long term, it's better than you'll be the authentic you, right? I mean, as AI becoming better and better, the ability to create the AI generated stuff based on everything that you ever wrote, any video that you ever did, is becoming a commodity, and everyone
Yeah.
can do that. And being able to channel, I don't know, source through your special vessel to produce something that is unique is going to become the most important thing. And if we connect it to this distribution of wealth that you mentioned, we want to make sure that as many people as possible will be able to contribute that non-UI human aspect of them
Yeah.
to contribute their small unique value into the greater pool of humanity, right?
Yeah. So I want to propose a restriction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Imagine that we told people that they have a limit amount of things they can produce. So you can say, you know what?
There was a book I learned in high school,
Yeah.
I think, that I think it's there was a woman that had a limited amount of words
Okay.
before she dies.
Okay. So I would like to say, what if you could, let's take books as example, and you say, you could produce 5 of those in your lifetime. This is it. Or posts or videos and so on. And maybe the limit is per year or per month or so on. But to basically say, we need somewhere for the question of quantity to not be faster than what we can produce, and to keep quality high. So it's probably not the right solution, but if you think about it, if people are just going to be trying to drown the world with information,
Yeah,
it's going to be very easy, and it's not clear that it will be good information. Like I want everybody, like you have a distribution, and let's say AI will move everything to the right, fine. But they still want only the top.
mm-hmm.
So we need to figure out how do we get the benefit of AI without drowning the information in a way that would keep us eventually more knowledgeable rather than more confused.
So I like the framework of limiting. You know who did this and was very successful? Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett is one of the richest people in the world, basically just having access to buying stocks that both of us could buy publicly, right? And just by doing that, starting from nothing, he became one of the richest people in the world. And his framework, what he teaches, is imagine that you have just 20 companies you can invest in all your whole life. And that will generate the best investment strategy. So it's very similar to like content generation, right? This scarcity is producing quality and producing higher returns, let's say, in that game.
Yeah. He has some other elements. For example, he loves investing in companies that are basically monopolies. Right. So one of his, I think, very well supported theories by now is that companies that compete have a hard time getting access alpha. And what you want is companies that are not in a real competitive market, because then they can have market power and they charge more, and they work. They are they're less efficient for the market, but more efficient for the shareholders of those companies. By the way, this idea of competition, in economics, there's this belief that the market is competitive and competition will sort itself out, the invisible hand, and so on. You have companies, they would compete, they will charge less, profit of margins will erode, everything would be okay. But what Buffett has pointed out is yes, economists, if companies would compete, that's what will happen. But companies don't want to compete. They know that this will be bad for them. So you might want them to compete, but the companies don't want to compete. So the companies buy each other out, they stay out of each other's way, they do lots of things to eventually no competition. So we have this idea of the market as somehow efficient because of the competition hypothesis, but we have companies who are dramatically incentivized not to compete.
Yeah.
That's why it goes back to the question of winner takes all.
Yeah, and the distribution of wealth. It's again this and so we understand very well the challenges and I think the risks. If we go back to the first point, how would it be if you imagine utopia in that sense? Like, let's say that we solved all these problems. How would the end state would look like if we sit here 10 years from now and humanity did everything right? How would it look like?
So my sense is that people need to work. I think unemployment is terrible. I think basically having no reason to wake up in the morning is just not a good idea. So I think being unemployed is having no money, but it also having no purpose. Both of them are bad, and I think we need to figure out what are we going to do to create a world where people have some universal basic income as a starting point, but also something to do. So, couple of general ideas. I think people need to have kids earlier if they're going to have kids. I think they should live near their parents, and their parents should retire earlier and take care of the kids. Like if you think about the life cycle,
Nice.
When you're 25, it's probably a good time to have a kid, not when you're 45 or 50. But you also don't have the time to take care of the kids as much when you're 25. Your parents who are 50 or 60 have time. And I forgot who's the author who said that the gift for parents for not killing their kids when they were young are grandchildren. So, but if you think about this as a general idea, it's saying, people are right now delaying having kids because it's career compatible. But if people retired early, we could have grandparents take care of the grandchildren and the parents live in a better way. So kind of, if you think about it, kind of a multi-generational families thinking about this. Now, I have to live in the same building. The other thing you would want to do is I think you would want to have many more people out and about helping, right? Schools. Right now, we have a teacher per 30 kids. Why not, at least for some hours, have individual tutorials, right? Why not?
Yeah.
If we have the manpower. There've been some really nice efforts where grandmothers are reading books to kids over the internet in other places.
Yeah, the granny cloud.
Yeah. So could we do it individually? What would happen? So I think we need to figure out the economics and the employment. Now, I think that we are still inherently social. We crave connection. I think we need to move away from a world in which we sit next to our computer by ourselves. But we need to figure out how we build it. The good news is we'll have manpower to use in a good way.
Yes.
But we'll have to restructure society in a very different way. So I think that schools could be very different. I even think that workplaces could be
Very different.
very different. So we'll see. We'll have to see how it. Where can we get real benefits from the human touch?
Yes, yes, because that's the value, and it's got got out of the system
That's
to
right.
create productivity, right? And now we need to put it back into the system.
That's right.
And the problems are, as you said, in the economic part, is that teachers are getting paid not very well,
Yep.
so they're not incentivized. People are not incentivized to do that,
Yep.
and caregivers are not getting paid well. And the way that generally people that are needs to spend time with their kids are not getting compensated on that. So
Yep.
how can
By
we
the way, caregivers is a good example. So, in one of the projects I did on end of life, I interviewed about 100 end of life doulas. Do you know this profession?
like in hospice
Yeah, but they sometimes work in
in
people's
home?
homes.
Yeah,
But so regular doulas help bring life in, end of life doulas
life out.
and life out. And I talked to them about what's a good end of life and what mistakes they see and so
Wow,
on. It was
very interesting.
very interesting. I eventually ended up doing the course myself, so I'm now a trained end of
Wow.
life doula, and I helped a few people making decisions. Um, I think those kind of big decisions I don't see being replaced by AI. I think being there with somebody and holding their hand and sharing information about and creating trust. I mean, it's not that I don't think that AI could maybe do equally good job or maybe even a better job. I just think that it's inherently, like, I'll give you an example. One of the things that the end of life doula said was that the person about to pass away needs to trust the doula. And the kind of the metaphor was that they could put their hands to the side like in a kid's game and fall backward.
Yeah.
That they just have this full trust that this will happen. Um, I also saw this very much with my mother, where she had the full trust that we would help her end her life with dignity, and I, you can't. You need that trust. So I think that for those things, um, we will need people, and it will. There's like endless need for those things. The number of people who are thinking and not know what to do with illness and complexity and so on. So I'm not worried if we will have a different funding model. I think there's endless things that we could do to to use people in a good way for positive purposes and
Amazing.
give them a meaning as well.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that utopia would look like a lot of one-on-one or small groups of human connection. Basically, on every person, you need to have at least one caregiver, maybe a coach, maybe a teacher. So there's enough for everybody to do it. Create a lot of sense of purpose, connection. It's very important with kids. It's important towards end of life. So there's no real problem of what to do. The problem is the economic mechanism to do that. So
That's right. Think about full-time mothers. They're
Mhm.
very busy.
Yeah, very busy.
But it's they don't get paid because we made a choice to not consider this as a
Very weird
as a
choice.
job. Yes,
Yeah.
very very strange. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're going to design a new society from scratch and you say, let's take people who are nourishing and helping the next generation, their own kids, and let's say that this is. They don't get compensated for that. We want them to do something else, right?
Yeah.
Or only people who have enough money can spend time on this, and the people who don't. So it's a very strange thing. But we could think about all the things that are potentially going to help human nourishing and flourishing, and saying how do we invest
Yeah.
in that, given that we'll have more manpower.
Yeah. So if you imagine, so this is utopia, and we understand the challenges and the risks. So what can we actually do to evolve into this fast enough? Because we understand now things are accelerating so fast and this unemployment scenario will happen. How can we change the economic structure to enable these kind of radical changes when we know that governments and, as you say, politics and all of that is still working on the old framework?
So the question is, who are we? We say about this. I love data. So my answers for almost anything is show me a good demonstration of something working out. So if I could, I would have taken a small community and I would start measuring activity, well-being, satisfaction, and so on, and I would implement those mechanisms. Universal basic income, but you don't just get it. You have to do something in society, opening new jobs, starting to pay for other things. And I would have used it as assuming the results would look as we think they would. I would use that as a convincing point. And there will be cost to that. So let's just take the simple thing of saying, let's just start paying stay-at-home parents, um, grandparents, and let's start paying something to people over 65 who are coming to schools to spend up to 4 hours a day. Let's just start doing that. The first thing I would try to do is to figure out what's the impact on quality of life and so on. What's the impact on things like crime, dissatisfaction, and so on, and then figure out what does it cost and what does it mean about our tax structure. But if we're moving to a situation where wealth is going to be more tightly concentrated, we also need to really think differently about taxes.
Yeah. And whether uh, countries are the right vehicle for creating this new taxation mechanism and distribution, or should we look at different ways of doing it? I mean, like the experiment of humanity with cryptocurrencies is very interesting, right? Like huge amount of wealth has been created, and the ability to launch a new economic experience became something you could do at a very short time. What do you think is the right framework to make these experiments if we want to make them many experiments and also have a business model for successful experiments?
For doing that, I think that the outcome measure that we want from these experiments are right now very general, and they can only come from a state. And I'll give you one example. Take something like getting people to be more active and have less diabetes. Now, let's say we have two worlds. We have one world in which we implement universal basic income and additional jobs. Let's call it social jobs. And we have a world that we don't. What are the outcome measures where we would get economic efficiency? I mean, there's spending money, but there's also saving. We will save money on things like police force. We will save money on things like crime. We will save money on things like insurance. We would probably save money on things like health, because if people stay at home, that's not good for health. If they go out and they meet people, they get better. So if you think about the economic costs, I'm not worried about who would pay them. I think probably corporation can do a better job than the government. But if you think about where the financial saving is coming from, it will come from things that are not going to reward corporation. They're only going to reward governments. So let's say you get a reduction in diabetes. Who gets the benefit from that? The people who run the healthcare system. Let's say you get a benefit because you need less police force, there's less theft, and so on. Who gets the benefit from that? Let's say you get benefit of people living a higher quality of life because they have more social interactions. Who is getting the benefit? So the problem with corporations is that they eventually define success in a very limited way. Not everything that is success is right now on the balance sheet of a company.
Exactly.
So, but the moment, and I think that if you say how do we expand the definition of a balance sheet, I think countries can do a better job because they pay for more things right now that are doing that. So, think about it. Which war versus peace? Um, who benefits more from war? Countries or companies? Companies,
Yeah.
because they get to sell
All the weapons. Yeah.
who benefits more from peace? but you couldn't the benefit you get from peace is a benefit in so many different ways that is not quantifiable for a company.
So maybe kind of the last question in this framework would be, can we change the economic rules, how money is being treated or earned, that you can only earn money or you earn more money if you aligned with humanity, if you are aligned with peace, with health, with things that are good? Can we make like a small change in this economic structure that will motivate companies to be more successful to just do that because they are much more efficient than governments in that?
So let me kind of mention two ideas, one more connected directly and one less. Uh, so Bogota, the capital for Colombia, has implemented something that I really love. Companies have a payroll tax. You have payroll, and you have X% of that is tax, and you have to send it to the government. What they did quite a few years ago was to say to the companies, stop sending this money to us, the government. You still have to give it, but it's your choice which NGO you're going to give it to.
Amazing.
Now, what that created was an ecosystem of NGOs. Now there's an ecosystem of NGOs that they can basically count how much money will come into the ecosystem of the NGOs, and they compete on that. And the companies do two things. One is they become the watchdogs of using their money correctly. If I'm company A and you come to me from NGO, I say, tell me what you're going to do with the money. It's not government, right? It's like,
I love it.
and let's sit at the end of the year and show me what you've done. You want money for another year?
Exactly.
Show me what you've done.
Business regime for NGOs.
That's right. It's an accountability. It's a business. You have to basically kind of be more clear about what you want to do, and you have to be accountable for what you do. The other thing is that the companies who give money for those things also get involved in them in other ways. Because if I'm company A and I give money to your NGO, it's not just giving money. My employees are now connected to this and the one.
Emotionally, purposefully.
Right. So now you can think of it as it's not a big enough change, what I'm proposing, but the idea, I think, is a good idea. The idea is to basically say, we need to get many more things involved in the civic world. And it could be that the government is too far away and we need something much more local. And maybe companies are kind of the right way. In the same way that, not-for-profits in general are mostly local and they understand the needs of the community. So they're much more agile than the government. So I think that we could have some model where the government gives some control and puts it at the hand of the economic powers to work on the thing they want to do. Because if you're a company with a headquarters in City X, you want City X to be better for your people in all kinds of...
I love it. It's basically saying that the more taxes you pay, you have more voting rights in a way, which makes much more sense than one person, one vote, and a lot of things.
Yeah. So I do like that kind of model, and I think we can expand it. That's one thing. The second thing, so this is a little farther out there, but I'll tell you the 5-minute version. A few years ago, I wrote all my Greek friends, and I said, I want you to apologize. You brought democracy, you sold it to us as a good thing. Look what happened, I'm not blaming you, but, just say, I'm sorry, we didn't think it would go this way. And my Greek friends said in return, they said, have you read much about Greek democracy? And I had to say, not that much. So I said, go and read and come back. So I went to read and I came back. And Greek democracy was really interesting. It came against being controlled by nobility. It was about giving back people the control. The statement is that the Greeks loved politics, they didn't like politicians. They didn't like parties. Parties are from the word to part. So what did they do? They used randomness. So take the court system, for example. All the citizens of Greece, of Athens, would show up in the morning by the courthouse, and they would randomly pick who are going to be the judges.
Like the jury system in
like the jury system. But it means that one day you could be the judge, one day you could be judged, right? If you think about the ruling class, a ruling class basically say, we are not subjected to the same rules as the individuals. We don't have to think about you really, just of the kindness of our heart, but we are here and you're here. And but the moment it's randomness, and I say, oh, tomorrow you might be judged. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So you could say, like, imagine we could do this experiment. I say, what do you want to do about the income gap between men and women? But just wait, tomorrow you might become assigned to be a woman. What really do you want to do with that? Right? So there's something really powerful,
amazing,
about the randomness. They also created tribes that were random, and they would move things around.
Wow.
So randomness was kind of a really interesting thing. And then we lost it. We moved to representative democracy. Now we have representative democracy plus media that is fragmented, so each leader can talk to just their people. So it's not working very well. But a few years ago, about 12 years ago, Ireland had two big problems: gay rights and abortions. And they couldn't come to an agreement about what to do about it. There were no gay rights and there was no abortion right 12 years ago. Catholics, Protestants, how can you deal with that? Clearly not suited. Like, you can't be Catholic and say, I'm okay with that. Like, you can't say that. So they created what is called now citizen committees. Let's pick a few hundred people, and these 100 people would have a really long time, as much as they need, to figure out the situation and to propose something for the whole country, and then we'll have a referendum on this. And these people went into deep sessions, long, many of them. They talked among themselves to understand their different positions. They invited experts. At the end of the day, they decided they want to propose that yes to gay rights and yes to abortion. There were a referendum and it was chosen.
Wow.
And if you think about this, there are things that our governments cannot do. When we have extreme people in the government, they cannot compromise. The nature of politics, especially when it's not behind closed doors, but in public and on Twitter, is all about extremity. But citizen committees are basically an antidote. So
love it.
Think about two ideas. One is that when we have challenges in society, we collect 300 people, randomly selected, we give them time to discuss themselves, to have experts, and to propose something for a referendum. The second thing is to say that every minister, every 6 months, will have to sit with a group of citizen committee to tell them what they've done in the last 6 months, what they plan to do in the next 6 months. And if the citizen committee doesn't like them, they could fire them.
Wow. Wow, I love it.
And two phrases. There's a German guy who's studying citizen committees, and he said two things that were really interesting for me. The first one, he said, Brexit would have never happened with the citizen committee if you had people who really thought about this question.
Yeah.
The second thing he said was that we think that going to vote once every 4 years is taking responsibility. It's actually giving up responsibility. Once every 4 years, we show up, we say, oh, don't talk to us again for 4 years. He said, no, the reality is that democracy is complex.
Yeah.
And if we want to do it well, we need to get more involved. And going back to this very quickly evolving world, and politicians, short-term thinking, and so on, I think one mechanism is to basically say, we the people need to get more involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we will have the time to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Maybe it's another job. Maybe it's another job. It's for each of
it's
us.
everybody's job,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think I think we got to a complete circle here. So we basically say that the ideal scenario is that people will be more involved in caregiving and in decisions around what we need to do. The challenges are around unemployment, concentration of wealth, misinformation, and short-term thinking.
Yep.
The risk that we will be in a dystopia of just few people controlling everybody else, complete chaos, anger, mob reaction, frauds, and everything, like a chaotic environment. And what you're suggesting, very concrete and doable solutions, is to have corporations much more involved in NGO work to make them more professional, more accountable, to have people more involved in everyday life, and to have politicians be accountable on this random concept coming from the ancient Greek democracy to make people involved and to make politicians accountable. That sounds like a really good and possible solutions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We could keep talking for hours, but
I'm sure another time we will.
So I want to thank you so much for joining today's podcast, and look forward to see how we see humanity going in the right path. And thank you so much.
Absolutely, of course.